It has finally happened. Our Lord and Savior has finally come, and we are about to see more insta-lock DPS than we have ever seen before. SK's fast as f at insta-locking, so...
Pick your hero. Or villain. I'm not judging.
Hello.
God damn it!
Hello, my name is Emiliath, and I really like Marvel Rivals, and I really like X-Men, but I especially really like Phoenix. She's one of my all-time favorite Marvel characters, and as such, I've been waiting for her launch in Marvel Rivals since this game released. Thankfully, I was able to secure early access in order to be the first in line to play her, so I could learn all about her as quickly as possible. So far, I'm enjoying her playstyle a lot. Her primary fire is hit scan, which means she's going to be fairly easy to pick up, and she plays kind of like a mix between Hela and Moon Knight. However, I think a lot of people will not enjoy playing against her, so I'm here to hopefully relieve some of that pain, because although she has me thinking about crossing over to the dark side, I do still love playing Strategist, and of course, Cloak and Dagger will always be my two true loves. In this video, I'm going to talk about not only how to play against Jean as a support, but also what supports may be better than others to play with and against her. Before we dive in, I think it's incredibly important to understand what a character does in order to know how to counterplay. You might be able to outplay someone on a character you know nothing about, but you could easily be wasting cooldowns or even your ultimates just because you don't know your opponent well enough. I think the best example of this is Psylocke ult and not having to use a support ult to counter it in many cases depending on who's standing in it and if your other support is there with you. So we're quickly just going to watch this educational video that showcases all of Phoenix's abilities before I get into everything else.
It's nice to break the judgment every now and then.
Whoa. Wait, so if you fill up that bar, it does more damage, I guess? Okay, let me read the abilities. Okay, left click, launch a fiery projectile forward, applying 1 spark to enemy's hit. Critical hits apply 2 sparks. At 3 sparks, Phoenix triggers a fiery explosion that applies 1 spark to enemies around, and healing over time to self. Sparks from explosions will not stack within a brief period. Okay, that stays on for a decent amount of time, though. Leave behind an illusion and instantly teleport in the desired direction, followed by detonating the illusion. Enemies hit are applied with 1 spark.
Can't catch me.
Huh. I think it's like an 11-second cooldown. 13-second? Merge with the Phoenix, entering a state of free flight, gain a movement boost while continuously replenishing ammunition.
Can't catch me.
Oh, I can also use my shift while using that. It's pretty short though. Mark a targeted area with psionic energy, followed by a series of fiery explosions. The first blast stuns enemies, while the subsequent 2 explosions inflict slow, applies 1 spark to enemies hit. It like goes in like a line. So I could stun ultimates with her right click? And it's like a hit scan. It's not hard to hit. Soar into the sky with the Phoenix and crash down onto a selected area, dealing devastating damage to enemies while creating a shock wave that destroys enemies' summoned shields, and any bonus health enemies hit are applied with 1 spark.
You are nothing. And I was holding back.
Like, I guess you regain your health after you come out of the smoke? Nope, yeah, you fully get... Wait. What? Wait, so I appear back where I started my ult? Same, Simmer. Can you take some damage and see how the stack works with health regen? Yes. So I have to apply 3 sparks to get the healing passive. I'm at 90 right now.
And I was
Oops.
holding back.
Oh, it has to be on the same person. Okay.
A foe has revealed themselves.
That's a pretty good chunk of health, in my opinion. So, like, if I have a spark on this guy, a spark on that guy, a spark on that guy, it's not going to give me a health regen. because it has to be all on one person. So beginning with playstyle, as you can see, it's pretty easy for Jean to get 3 sparks on someone due to her primary fire being a hit scan that fires rather quickly. Comboed with her right click, she can do a ton of burst damage very quickly by stacking sparks in quick succession, especially in strong choke points, which most of the maps have. And after someone is struck with 3 sparks, they create an explosion that triggers on anyone nearby, creating a chain effect that sort of puts your team in this loop of explosions if everyone is standing next to each other. Which means the obvious positioning against Phoenix is that you should be distanced a bit from your teammates. For most of the support characters, this is optimal positioning anyway, but if you want a more in-depth guide, I do have one already uploaded. I will copy it to the description. The radius on her burst isn't anything crazy, so even if you want to play a closer range support like Susan or Adam, you can still play slightly separated to where you will not get hit with a burst if someone else gets sparked by her. Additionally, you want to play more like you're playing against any other hit scan. Make sure you're angling yourself in a way that you can still see your allies, are covering or at least aware of flanks, and have something nearby that you can duck behind so that if she does manage to hit you, you can hide for a second to get the sparks off you before she can get 3, because the sparks do eventually fall off if she doesn't hit you rapidly enough. Jean can be scared off pretty easily, but she does have ways to flank and quickly kill you, similar to Hela due to her damage and her movement abilities, primarily her phase shift. So of course, you should always have awareness, but especially when going against her, you should pay close attention to flanks relative to where you're standing and how easy it'd be to pick you off. Additionally, it's super important to remember her alternate fire does have a stun and slow attached to it, meaning she can cancel your abilities or even ultimates if she hits you with it, making it pretty risky to take a duel with her. Again, I'm going to compare her to Hela, who also has a stun. If you're taking a fight with Hela and she stuns you, you're usually dead as a squishy character if she can aim. This isn't a super hard ability for Phoenix to land, so make sure you pay attention when trying to use your ultimate or you could lose it. This is less of a concern for most of the support roster, as their ultimates tend to be faster than some of the other roster's ultimates, like Doctor Strange's, who is pretty easy to stun, but it's still a good thing to be aware of. One thing to note is that it does not go through shields or walls, so you're safe if you start your animations behind one of those. Finally, in regards to her ultimate, a lot of the support ults can counter hers. Luna Snow, Cloak and Dagger, and Invisible Woman all have ultimates that work well against Jean's, as it doesn't really do anything to them aside from the impact damage. Luna does, however, completely lose her shield she gains from her ultimate if Jean ults on top of her. This would make it easier for a Magneto to launch Luna into the stratosphere with his metal meatball. Invisible Woman and Cloak and Dagger's ultimates do not take any negative effect from Phoenix's. Mantis's ult is affected though, as Phoenix's ultimate takes away any current overhealth from whoever it hits. However, because Mantis's ultimate regens overhealth, she still has the ability to gain it back. The primary issue I found with using Mantis against Jean is that I'll ult to keep people alive, and when Jean ults, the blast taking away the overhealth for even that moment can end in a team wipe just from the damage of the blast, or even if the enemy team capitalizes on the few seconds where the health is down or still regenerating. Adam's ult is, well, it's still Adam's ultimate, and it's a juicy area for Phoenix to target during hers, since everyone in it will take the blast damage, even if there's nothing else for her ult to take away. Loki, of course, depends on who he duplicates, but no, Jean doesn't take his ult away completely or anything like that. He still has the ability to ult. There's not really a way for Phoenix to use her ultimate on Ultrons directly, unless he's playing ground Ultron, or if she wants to try and blast him out of the sky, which would be difficult, I'd imagine, and probably a waste of an ult. Anyway, Ultron's ult is unaffected by Jean's, since his is basically straight up damage and healing. Jeff's ult could be countered by Jean's, but it would require her to lower his health before hitting him with the blast, as the blast will not kill him alone, which is not to say it still wouldn't be a good counter, because typically your teammates are shooting at the Jeff if he's eaten anyone, but he is pretty slippery and does regen health while swimming underwater, so it's not entirely out of the question that he could easily survive the Phoenix ult. And finally, Rocket. Rocket gets absolutely destroyed by Phoenix ult. She can be used as a hard counter to Rocket ultimates because she not only gets rid of the shields produced by his ultimate, she also just completely incinerates it. Like straight up just Thanos snaps all of it out of existence. So it's probably safe to say Rockets is the most hard countered by Phoenix. Which leads me to, which supports are the best against Phoenix? Please keep in mind that this tier list is specifically for going against Phoenix herself, not based off of how good the character is in a current meta or what the meta will become. Starting in the lowest tier, I obviously think Rocket is the worst matchup for Jean. His ult is the most hard countered, which means that any DPS with half a brain will just wait to use her ult for his specifically, making him useless in moments you need a support ult the most. His one saving grace against Jean is that he's got a small hitbox, so he's harder for her to hit, and he plays further away from his team most times, so he won't easily be blown up. But all of that doesn't really matter if he's unable to get any value on his ult. Moving on to Mantis, I put her in C simply because her ultimate does regenerate the HP over time, so Phoenix doesn't counter her ult as hard as Rocket's, but it is still pretty significant and can easily kill her or her teammates with it. Mantis also tends to play a little closer to her team, which could lead to more value on crowd control from Phoenix. I did have a hard time deciding where to place Adam because he has both drawbacks and advantages against Jean. Ultimately, I decided to put him lower because the drawbacks seem to outweigh the benefits. First, his ult is unaffected by hers, but she can literally just ult his revive and probably kill anyone that was revived within it if done fast enough. Also, his soul bond is unaffected by Phoenix ult, which means you could try to use it on hers, but because of how big the blast radius is, it's possible she could just kill your team through it or easily finish them off after. I do think Adam could be good for denying Phoenix's angles, but because he does have to play so grouped with his team, he's probably not the best choice to play into her. For this reason, I've placed him in C tier with Mantis. Ultron is also in C because although he can fight back against Phoenix and his ultimate is virtually unaffected by her, Jean is still a hit scan, and hit scan characters obviously counter flyers due to them being able to just shoot them out of the sky fairly easily. And although I don't find this to be a hard counter, Jean's ultimate does destroy Ultron's drone and armor, which can create a pretty big disruption in a team fight due to eliminating a form of healing, especially if there's anyone low HP to begin with. Jeff is also placed in C because while I do think his ability to survive Phoenix ult and him being able to easily scare people on off angles with his constant damage on his primary is convenient, he does unfortunately have a massive head hitbox, and if anyone has played Jeff, you know how miserable it is to go against people that can take advantage of that. However, his long range healing may come in handy against someone that has a kit with a focus on crowd control. I placed Loki in B because although Jean behaves similar to Moon Knight and punishes those grouped up, he is still Loki, and being able to duplicate some of the best support ults in the game will always have significant value. And despite the ability to burst groups, I think you can simply adjust your playstyle and separate your clones from you and your teammates to avoid the bursts. However, Phoenix's ultimate does destroy his clones and runes, meaning he can't use his runes to counter hers because they get destroyed before she lands. So I'm a little on the fence with this placement, but ultimately put him a little higher just because he is so strong by default. I've put Invisible Woman in A because her ultimate can counter Phoenix's, and her shield and crowd control ability can deter Phoenix from flanks. She does have a couple downsides, one being that she does have to play closer to her teammates, and her shield is destroyed by Phoenix ult. Cloak and Dagger, my beloveds. I've put them in S tier because their ult does pretty much hard counter Phoenix's and covers a large area, allowing your team to spread out from the blast point and avoid further crowd control from Jean. They also have a lot of self-sustain and are able to play the farthest away from their teammates to avoid being hit by any of Jean's crowd control. I honestly think Cloak and Dagger might be the best support against Phoenix, but of course they are still easily killed out of their ult by plenty of other things, which will keep them from being better picks than some of the other supports. But that's a different conversation. And of course, Luna Snow is S because she is Luna Snow, she has high HP, the best ultimate in the game, is the favorite child, can do no wrong, and deserves every single buff in existence. Her ult counters Phoenix even though Phoenix does get rid of the shield she gains initially. That's not really significant when her ultimate is a nothing dies button. It could be used with the Magneto ult though to help secure the kill on Luna, but that's getting into a broader conversation about Jean team-ups and whatnot, and I just really don't want to get into that right now. Speaking of, the next thing I want to talk about is what supports seem to pair best and worst with Jean Grey. I just went ahead and made another tier list for this one because I find that tier lists tend to get used as a bible when big streamers use them, so I figured I should really capitalize on using them. They have this weird power that prevents their audience from using their own critical thought or forming their own opinions, and instead allows them to just put blind faith in whoever made the list. So I urge you to use this tier list as gospel, my children, and go and preach the good word of Emiliath Christ. Anyway, I don't think any strategist is going to be necessarily bad when paired with Jean Grey because she's a DPS. It doesn't matter as much what support is played with her, but there are some benefits over others. So when looking at this tier list, I'm not saying these characters are bad to play with her. I think they're all fine to play with. I just think the ones that are higher on the tier list get more advantages than the ones at the bottom. Starting at the bottom again, we have Adam. Adam doesn't really provide anything specifically to enable Jean. For that reason, he is placed at the lowest. Loki is placed higher than Adam simply because he's Loki. He's one of the strongest, if not the strongest support, and because he can duplicate an ultimate that is beneficial to work with Phoenix. Jeff is in the same tier because he doesn't really provide much to Phoenix specifically, but he does have the ability to easily finish off a group of people she may have bursted with crowd control. Next, Ultron is placed higher because of his healing drone, which he can give Phoenix to a allow her to take more angles on the enemy team. Rocket is placed in the same tier because of his ultimate, which can damage boost Phoenix, giving her the ability to quickly and easily secure kills, especially with her burst abilities. Cloak and Dagger are S because of their Terror Cape, which is secured on a cooldown rather than being tied to an ultimate that can provide even more burst potential for Phoenix on crowds. Susan is S because she also provides an additional crowd control on a cooldown with her Vortex, and she can use her shield to provide angles for Phoenix. Luna is an S because once again she's Luna Snow, and she has a snowflake she can place on Jean to give her free reign on flanks or high ground, and she can damage boost her during ult. And this one is a bit funny considering I think Mantis isn't the best played against her, but I actually think Mantis cooks when played with Phoenix. The damage boost on Phoenix is actually sort of insane. When I played with Mantis as Jean in the test server, it felt like I was just throwing the sun at my enemies and absolutely frying them. I'm curious to see if Mantis is played more this season with her changes and with her being a pretty decent pairing for the new hero, or if Phoenix will counter her too hard for her to be played against her at all. But I put it in a tier list, so now you guys can tell your teammates a famous streamer told you Mantis was S tier, therefore they can't complain when you lock her. Anyway, that's about all I've got. Overall, I think Phoenix will shake up the meta, especially due to her countering Rocket, since Rocket has become one of the better supports recently. I also didn't test everything with Jean's ult, like what ults she can counter on the rest of the roster, or how far the blast radius is, and how far she can destroy deployables, etc. So there's a lot of variables that'll play into how she could potentially change the meta just based off of those things. Unfortunately, I do know that her ultimate doesn't get rid of Magneto's death ball, so we are still crying in the club, my Cloak and Dagger sisters. Overall, I think Phoenix could be really scary in the right hands, and I think you'll need to stay super aware against her or you'll be blasted into next week. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave me a comment on what you think about Phoenix and what you're most excited for this upcoming season. See you guys later. Bye!